Hello, and welcome to the Most Maligned Horror Podcast. This is a show offering critical analysis and contextualization for the horror films of the early 2000s. I am your host, Macaulay Elijah Quinn. I am a filmmaker and film critic, welcoming you to what I have tentatively called Episode 0 of this show. This is basically going to be my opportunity to talk with you guys about what this show is, or I suppose rather what I'm hoping that it will be, what it will grow to become as time goes on. How that's going to work is that today we are going to be talking about the background of the show, its sort of reason for existing, its thesis statement, if you will. We're also going to be talking briefly about structure, about how I'm going to be structuring individual episodes of the show, but also whole seasons. This is a show that has seasons. It has a definitive beginning, middle, and end. And then we're going to close out with a discussion of my goals as a critic, as somebody with a critical voice. How I want to conduct myself, basically, is probably the best way to put it. Hopefully that's something that you are all interested in, and that you'll stick around till the end of. I grew up in the 2000s. So a couple of years ago now, I wrote an article for the University of Canterbury's Canter magazine titled In Defense of Children's Horror, in which I talk about my experiences growing up watching horror-adjacent media. So shows like Courage the Cowardly Dog, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, that sort of thing. I also talk about how I was a very, very timid child, how I was scared of just about everything growing up. And so what this means is that I have a pretty big gap, about a decade-sized gap in my knowledge of horror cinema. I have spent a great deal of my teenage years and into my 20s, and I am fast approaching my 30s at this point, thinking about horror and thinking about genre filmmaking. Coincidentally, we've also seen in the past couple of years there has been this move to reclaim a lot of 2000s popular culture. So we're seeing this move to reappraise a lot of films and television shows and music and fashion. There's been this big resurgence in early 2000s aesthetics. And as a result of that, there have been a few different narratives that have popped up around how we define the decade. Now, I don't know if this is just my personal experience, or if this is something that others have also experienced, but growing up in the 2000s, there was always a lot of talk about how the 2000s were in some way culturally inert, or perhaps more accurately, pop culturally inert. You think about the 80s. The 80s was the decade of the blockbuster. It was when Hollywood became the capital B business that it is today. And then you look to the 90s, and that was the decade of grunge. That was the decade where counterculture became the mainstream. And the 2000s, it doesn't really have anything quite so singular, I think. And so what you've seen with this reappraisal that's been happening the past couple of years is that there has been this move to say that, well, the 2000s, that was the anti-Bush years. That's how we define the decade. We build ourselves and our art in opposition to the atrocities in Abu Ghraib and into, the tragedies of 9/11 and of, the injustice of the war in Iraq. And I don't buy it. My recollection of the 2000s as somebody growing up in it was that this was a deeply conservative time. And so one of the reasons that this show exists is to challenge that narrative, to push back against my own perception of this time period and to say, okay, am I actually basing this on evidence? Am I actually, seeing the world for how it is or how it was? And if not, then why not? And, to grow and to develop and to learn. I'm here to learn as much as I am to teach or to tell you guys anything. How this is going to work is that this is going to be a show that runs for 10 seasons, each of which is going to cover 1 year, beginning in January of 2000 and running all the way through until the end of December 2009. These are going to be largely free-form discussions. I am going to come in with, a couple pages of notes and a few bullet points, a couple of quotes that maybe I want to sort of drop in here and there. But for the most part, this is all going to be just sort of off the top of the dome, which is why some episodes may be a little bit rambling, a little bit long-winded. I hope that you'll stick with me while I sort of find my feet a little bit. I want to clarify here that I am specifically interested in talking about American popular culture. And so what this means is that the films that I will be covering must have had a wide release within the United States. Here I'm defining a wide release as either a theatrical or a television release. So what this means is that obviously we'll be covering foreign films, but we're not going to be covering, absolutely every film that was released in a given year. I had to draw the line somewhere, and so this is just the easiest way that I could think to do it. I want to clarify that this doesn't mean that I see shot on video or direct to video or direct to DVD films as being, lesser art or in some way less worthy of serious criticism. I don't. I actually believe that a lot of these films can be in some way more instructive than a lot of the sort of mainstream larger budget films that are released. I also want to say that we'll be working in chronological order using the American release date. So what this means is that if a film was released in January of 2000 in Japan, but it didn't see a theatrical release until March of 2002 in the United States, then we won't be covering it until 2002. I also want to say that I am working with incomplete information, so I am hoping that you guys will hold me accountable. If I miss a film, then I am hoping that you will get in touch and let me know. I've done my best to compile as complete a list as I can. I've been working using a couple of different resources and sort of pulling from a couple of different places, but undoubtedly there is something that I have missed, and so if you ever come across anything, feel free to send me an email. You can do that. mostmaligned@gmail.com is going to be the easiest way to get in touch. To close us out today, I just want to talk about my goals, what I am hoping to accomplish, how I am wanting to present myself as a critic, and what I want from this show, basically. First of all, whether or not a film is good or bad is less important and less interesting to me than what the film is saying. So what I'm specifically interested in is how the filmmakers are creating meaning, using editing and cinematography and music. My goal is to place these films into a wider cultural context for you, to explore through these discussions the ways in which the works are engaging with the ideologies of the wider world. I've got this quote that says, "Art reflects life reflects art," and I think that that's probably the best way to sort of think about things. I think that will do it for today. I'd like to thank Janka Glonis for the use of her track Slime Dripping Down the Walls off of the album Funtime Party Gal. A link to that album and to their Bandcamp can be found in the episode description. If you have any comments or queries regarding the show and you want to get in touch, you can do that on Twitter at Most Maligned or via email mostmaligned@gmail.com. Next week, we'll be starting the show proper with January 2000's Supernova, a sci-fi thriller about sex and bodies. And until then, this has been the Most Maligned Horror Podcast.